Thank you, Frank. Good morning, guten Morgen, everyone. It's a pleasure to be there with you physically, but also with all the people online, of course. I'm Jean-Philippe Desmartins, Head of Responsible Investment at Edmond Rothschild Asset Management, and of course, co-chair of this ESG Commission at EFAS. And I'm pleased and I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker today, Patrick de Cambourg. Patrick de Cambourg is member of the EFRAG Board. He's chair of the project task force on preparatory work for the elaboration of possible EU non-financial reporting standards. I'm not going to detail all Patrick de Cambourg did in the last year and last decades because it's a great job he's achieved in different fields. But keep in mind that today he's president of the French Accounting Standards Setting Authority, the Autorité des Normes Comptables, and as such, also member of the board of the European body with advisory capacity of the European Commission on IFRS, and also member of the IASB Forum of Major Standard Setters. Is also part of the French Capital Markets Regulatory, and of course, as I was saying in the introduction, key responsible at the EFRAG level, so at the European level. I let you the floor, Patrick de Cambourg, for this 30 minutes keynote on state of the art on sustainability reporting standards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Philippe. And thank you for this too kind introduction. I would like to highlight just one point. The task force, in fact, has moved from preparatory work to elaboration of standards, because as you may know, Europe has adopted, the Commission has adopted a proposal for a directive called the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And the preparatory work that has been done by the task force between September 2020 and February 2021 has moved now to the elaboration of standards. So the Commission has requested the task force to work again, but now not on preparatory work, but on the elaboration of possible EU, not possible, on EU non-financial reporting standards that should be adopted in the conditions which I will mention in a minute. So in order to introduce the landscape, we need to understand that in the EU there is a momentum in terms of sustainability reporting, which has started a number of years ago in some member states, then which has taken a EU-wide dimension, in particular in 2014 with the adoption of what is called the Non-Financial Reporting Directive. This text was very much was innovative, but was also a first step in an ambitious path. That created certainly a level of awareness on sustainability matters, encouraging member states and also reporting entities to consider sustainability as a key topic in their communication with stakeholders. As a consequence, many initiatives have taken place, but when the Commission adopted as a key pillar of its strategy the so-called Green Deal with many sub-projects at the end of 2019, so the new Commission in December 2019, it became obvious that the non-financial or sustainability data was not where it should be. And that's particularly important for all the players of sustainable finance, because it is very dangerous to a large extent. It is dangerous to have products, to have strategies, to have communication that is based on data that is not reliable enough or relevant enough. So obviously, it became a priority to address the challenge of high quality sustainability data. So in January 2020, the executive vice president of the Commission, Valdis Dombrovskis, clearly stated that as regards data, there were two key objectives. The first one was to revisit the legal framework, so to move from the NFRD to what is now known as the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, and therefore to establish a new framework in the EU. But second key point, to create sustainability reporting standards, i.e. a level 2, as it is known in the EU, a level 2 regulation that would be adopted via delegated acts, and that would be mandatory in the EU for all the reporting entities in the scope of the CSRD. So, and that's that statement dating back January 2020 is now being under implementation. The CSRD, the draft proposal for the new directive, has been adopted by the Commission on April 21st of this year, and is following the legislative process, i.e. is under consideration by the Parliament and by the Council. So there might be some changes because it's obviously a political process, but from what we hear, it is expected that this text will become final in the first half of 2022. By the same token, as I was briefly explaining, the task force has been asked to start elaborating standards, i.e. the level 2 regulation, in project mode to start with a handover to a revised governance of EFRAG at the end of the first quarter of 2022. So the task force started again to work on the elaboration, in June, and will hand over in June 2021, and will hand over in March 2022 what has been done so far for the new governing bodies of the sustainability reporting standards pillar of EFRAG to carry on and deliver on time a first set and then a second set of standards to be adopted via delegated acts, as I mentioned. The CSRD is establishing a clear landscape. So the idea is, of course, to confirm that instead of having, information collected via different systems or processes, the sustainability information will be produced by the reporting entity itself, and will be produced under the standards that will be adopted and under the principles that are established in the CSRD. So CSRD, the key features are the following. First of all, it is the scope of the reporting entities is all large entities in the EU, large under the EU definition. And if we take the criterion of number of employees, a large entity is an entity with more than 250 employees. So as you understand, it is a significant it's a rather low threshold. So it will be a matter of implementation for 50,000 entities in the EU, representing more than 50% of the GDP, the European GDP. SMEs, so entities below that threshold, will be encouraged to adopt on a voluntary basis those standards that will have a simplified version designed for them. The coverage of topics by the reporting, the sustainability reporting, should be E, environment, S, social, and G, governance. So there is the ambition to cover a broad spectrum of sustainability matters, not only nature and environment, but also inclusion and the social and societal aspects of development, and of course the governance that goes with it. It will be covered via the various sets. The information will be located in the management report, and EFRAG is advocating in favor of a separate section of the management report called the sustainability statements that would be or will be the counterpart of the financial statements, a second leg to standardized corporate reporting. It will be also audited by a third party, audited under a limited assurance to start with, but moving to reasonable assurance as soon as the auditing standards will be ready. And information should be prepared in a way that can, where it can be digitized from day one, and not only available in human readable format. I would say this is a game-changing. It's a game-changing step. To date, in the draft submitted by the Commission, the first year of implementation on the basis of the first set of standards would be 2024, early 2024, on the basis of reporting year 2023. So to tell you the truth, it is in standard setting terms and in implementation terms, it is tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. The key consequence being that we are working very hard to meet the deadlines. We'll see if the Parliament and or the Council are giving a little leeway on that. I understand that it is being discussed as we speak, or it's being considered. Nevertheless, it is important for everybody to go fast because there are sustainable finance regulations that need data to be implemented, namely taxonomy, but also SFDR, which are two key regulations applicable in particular to asset managers and to financial institutions. So in that context, EFRAG is working, has started the elaboration, as I was mentioning already, since June. The task force of EFRAG is composed of 35 members from 13 member states, European Union member states. And we are supported by a secretariat of 30 full-time equivalent, because standard setting is a complex process involving many steps. At the moment, the EFRAG task force is drafting working papers that will be available. One of them was already released on climate disclosures early September. A new version is under preparation, and that second version will be released with the other working papers on the other E, S, or G topics. between now and early January. This working paper then is submitted to an expert working group. We have 11 working groups, so to each and every working group, which will have a theme to cover. And then it's discussed in the plenary meetings of our task force to build consensus, because the task force is multi-stakeholder. So we have preparers, we have asset managers, we have academics, we have NGOs, we have standard setters. And of course, in the European approach to standard setting, it is absolutely important to create the right level of consensus, which, by the way, should, in theory and in practice, is leading to a balanced approach to disclosures. So once that has been done, we will finalize what we call exposure drafts, which will be submitted to public consultation, and then we will hand over to the governing bodies of EFRAG, as I said, at the end of the first quarter of 2022. Now, a word about a key point, which is what's happening internationally and how does that relate to what is happening in the EU. First of all, from the beginning, both the Commission and, of course, EFRAG in its initial report on preparatory work and now are expressing the view that due to the global challenges, it is absolutely key that the EU standards be built under a co-construction spirit with other initiatives. In that respect, EFRAG has therefore deployed the policy that we call the extended hand policy. So we are happy to discuss and capitalize upon and to contribute to the progress of all international key initiatives. We have an extremely strong relationship with Global Reporting Initiative, which is the pioneer in standard setting, very close to a concept that is a key concept under the CSRD, which is the double materiality one. And we are, in that respect, fortunate to have them on board. They will also benefit from what we do to enhance their own standards, which are applied in many jurisdictions by a significant number of businesses. So they are an integral part of the cooperation that we wanted. We also have agreements with SHIFT, which is an organization specializing in the promotion of human rights, disclosures, and behaviors. And we also have a key agreement with Wiki, specializing on intangibles. We also have significant discussions and regular discussions with the IFRS Foundation, which has declared recently that they are creating an ISSB. From these discussions and from what has been released by the IFRS Foundation, i.e. a prototype on climate, which we can compare to our prototype, and also another prototype on general requirements, we see that to a certain extent, even if they have an investor focus and are not necessarily operating under double materiality, but double materiality is also including investor focus. So I don't see here a conflict. I see I see additional disclosures needed for other stakeholders than investors, but not a conflict. We see that we have assessed, and we have said so during the COP26, that we feel that what is being promoted at international level, which will be slower, because we have, as we have seen, we have strict deadlines in the EU, and possibly with a different coverage to start with and progressing over time. But in the EU, we also have to cover ESG quickly. So far, we do not see in what has been produced a risk of multiple reportings. What we see is that, and we are developing also the concept of, in a digital world, to have what we call multi-tagging. So to have, if we have agreement at granular level on a number of disclosures, and even if the various frameworks develop additional ones, you know, it's possible to combine and to have a capacity to access a granular information that is required by multiple frameworks under different tags. And you can read, therefore, the EU reports in an EU way. You can read them also in an ISSB way, or in a TCFD way, or in a SASB way. So, you know, I think in a digital world, that is the world that we promote today, compatibility is easier to organize if people accept that there might be different structure, there might be different coverage, there might be different timetables, but at the end of the day, global you know, sustainability reporting would progress, you know, depending on each and every jurisdiction. I forgot to mention, of course, that at this stage, the ISSB initiative is supported by a number of global organizations or by a certain number of jurisdictions, but it's not yet very clear what the US will be doing in that respect. They have declared that they are considering the matter seriously, and that's good news, following in particular the fact that it was clearly not on the agenda of the previous administration. Now it is on the agenda of the Biden administration, and the SEC is considering seriously climate and human capital as key dimensions of the disclosures on risks and opportunities within the mandate of the SEC. So that's good news, and we have conversations here where we are sharing our vision for them to consider. I think that most jurisdictions and markets are considering how to position themselves vis-a-vis sustainability reporting, and that's extremely good news. So, Jean-Philippe, maybe I've been a little shorter than or longer, I don't know what you expected, but I think that I tried to convey the key messages on the state of the art and sustainability reporting standard setting. So I would like to hand over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Patrick. Very dense and rich and useful input. We have 5 minutes, so it means that if you have some questions or remark, of course, the people present physically, but also online, please do not hesitate. Yes, we have one question. I propose that you come at in front of
I see the question. I see the question. I read it. What would be the ideal timeline for the EU non-financial reporting standards? Well, I mentioned it. Here there is a balancing act currently. It's a political decision, so it's difficult for me to express a view, but I can reflect what I hear. I hear that at this stage, of course, and I will give a technical perspective as well. From a political perspective, there is a discussion on, yes, it is important to deliver good sustainability reporting, but also the timeline that is envisaged by the Commission might be a little too strict. So the discussions revolve around either a slightly different date for implementation or setting priorities and moving on a step-by-step basis. But I cannot comment on what would be the outcome, first of all, and also it becomes a political decision under the EU democratic processes. So I think we are good European citizens and we need to take this on board in due course. From a technical standpoint, I would say that it is key to prioritize. So what I meant, I would like to mention that this is something we have not yet finalized at task force level. We are establishing a target, and that's pretty obvious in the prototype on climate disclosures that we released in September. It is a top-down approach. What would be ideal in terms of, you know, of disclosures? Now we could decide or propose to have this in 1, 2, or 3 sets of implementation, i.e. different application dates. Now, one point from a technical standpoint also is that businesses, I mean, reporting entities also today are submitted to an exponential number of requests from investors. And in that respect, you know, the sooner we deliver a platform of standardized and robust and audited information, the better. Because at the moment, reporting entities suffer from, you know, so many requests, an increasing number of requests, that at the end of the day, we need to consolidate that move in order to offer a platform of publicly available standardized information to everybody.
Thank you, Patrick. We have a question from the room physically.
Thank you. I would like to ask, what are the critical points of discussion within the working groups? I mean, it's at the end of the day coming to definitively some agreements, some compromises. So what are the big topics here?
Well, I think that I would say there is a general agreement on the direction of travel. The discussion is mostly on the pace of change, or the pace of the disclosures to be asked. We developed in the task force a concept that we have called enhancement of content. So the first set of standards will require a first level of disclosures. The second set would not contradict the first one, but would go deeper. And then the following sets also. So in order to get, after a few sets, to a good platform, robust platform, you know, giving a comprehensive information on the topics and allowing all users to have decision useful information, which is the key factor. Because we are not here to comply with something, we are here to develop an information system, disclosures that are relevant for decision making by users, internally, externally, finance, investors, lenders, and other stakeholders. So I think that the key point is the prioritization, and we see it because we have a number of our task force members that are promoting a bottom-up approach, a consolidation approach, and then enhancing, which is fine to a certain extent. And we have another school of thought, which is to say, why don't we start with the end game, and then we prioritize. In fact, we can, I hope, and I think it's feasible, we need to reconcile via the prioritization between the various sets of standards that will be released. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, Patrick. We are exactly on time with the organization of the full day. So I'm going to thank you very much, Patrick de Cambourg, and we are going to continue with the next session I wish you a very good day, Patrick. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jean-Philippe, and thank you all.